Om. At the very outset, I wish to submit my humble pranams to Pujya Swami Chidananda ji and also to Vibhaji for having given me yet another opportunity to be with you all. My sincere thanks and best wishes to all the participants on today's webinar. I'll be spending the next half an hour to 40 minutes in sharing with you some of my thoughts on the subject of the day, which is education for well-being. This session will be the part 1 in this series. There will be a part 2 and 3 also, because the subject is so vast that it's very difficult to complete it within 40 minutes. I would take you through the way in which I understood this subject, exactly the same way, so that I feel that understanding the shodasha samskaras with a little bit of introduction to Vedas is a much better way of handling this subject. There are certain words which over a period of time, the actual meaning of those words have either been kind of distorted or shrunk. They had very profound meaning at some point in time, and we, because of the context of our present day living, we have kind of shrunk the meaning of those words. One example that comes to my mind straight away is the word literacy. This is derived from the Latin root literatus, which actually means learned. Somebody who has a mastery over the literature of the day. Obviously, if somebody has to be literate to that degree, he should have learned the alphabets. But unfortunately, today when we refer to the word literacy, or we say so and so is literate, we only say that so and so knows alphabets. He knows how to read and write. It's not really required for us for him to be learned in order to consider him as literate. He doesn't really have to be educated. This actually leads us to the other word, education. Education also comes from a Latin root, educatio, which actually means to train, to teach. What is to be trained and taught? Just about everything. So education in that sense is a very broad meaning, that it is going to teach us, it's going to train us, just about everything required for the human evolution. But unfortunately, we all know that when we use the word education today, we only mean that we are referring to the occasional training part of it. When we today say so and so is educated, all that we are referring to is that so and so has got a certain degree from a certain university. Even when we want to compare two people of education, say for example, we have a person who has been educated by, say, Stanford University, and we have another person educated by a lesser known university somewhere in Africa, and when we want to compare them, all that we can tell is that so and so from Stanford probably is better equipped for this job than so and so from Africa. We don't have any other possibilities beyond this. That's how the word education has been restricted to. Unfortunate. But we have in our backyard a word which even today has kept its sheen, kept its shine, because it treats literacy and education in a very different perspective, and that is Shiksha. If you look at the etymology of Shiksha, it is Shiksha Vidyopadane is the dhatu. What does it mean? It means to learn. It means to practice. You will immediately see the difference between education and Shikshana. If education is about teaching and training, Shikshana is about learning and practicing. If education lays emphasis on the teacher, Shikshana is laying emphasis on the student. If Education is all about occasional training in the present context. Shikshana even today means something beyond that. When Vibhaji called me and asked me for the subject for today's discussion, off the hat I said education for well-being. But after I started preparing for that, and when I started looking at these words, I think that the subject for today would be more appropriate if it is not education for well-being, Shikshana for well-being. Let's keep it that way. We now have another word, well-being. We need to understand that. I think there is not just a subtle, but a very significant difference between being well to well-being. Being well is just a single dimension attribute. Well-being is a three-dimensional attribute. What do I mean by that? Being well is what the education prepares us to be. It teaches us a certain skill set using which we acquire a job, we build our career, we make money, and we live. But Shikshana actually equips us not just to build our career and live through, but to enjoy this journey in all its possibilities. When I say it is three-dimensional, I mean the Shikshana will equip us not just on the Adi Bhautika level, but also on Adi Daivika, and most importantly, Adhyatmik. Physical, mental and emotional, and also spiritual. So anything that equips us to handle our life at all these three parameters, all these three different planes, we can say that we are in a state of well-being. Otherwise, we are only in a state of being well. How does Shikshana help us to acquire this know-how to excel in all the three dimensions? We now refer to the Purusharthas. If you just have a desire, a kamane, through which you acquire artha, wealth, then you are only being educated. But if you do these two of encouraging your desire and using that to acquire wealth, but you start leading a life of dharma, a righteous way, and aspiring for moksha, then we can say that we are in a state of well-being, not just being well. And when I say moksha, let us not understand moksha to be some place in the heaven or in the deep skies, which we are going to experience after we die. That is all Puranas. As far as Veda is concerned, moksha is something, is a state of well-being, is a state of absolute bliss that one can and one should experience in their own lifetime when they are kicking alive. So when we fulfill the objectives of the Purusharthas and go through the process of Shikshana, it will result in our well-being, which means that we will excel on all the three dimensions that we just now spoke of. Is there a Shikshana for well-being? Is the next obvious question. Yes, it is there. It is prescribed by Vedas in the form of shodasha samskaras. Now we are countering another new word, samskara. We need to understand this also. Samskar has different connotations and different meanings. One very simple meaning is that it is a process that transforms. It's a process that purifies something. Like, for example, you take milk and apply a certain samskar to that, extracting its cream, you get butter out of that. You take that butter and apply another samskar to it, you get ghee. Now you take that leftover milk, ferment it and apply another samskar to it, you will get curds. Then you churn this curd and apply another samskar to it, it transforms into buttermilk. The entire different processes of starting with milk and obtaining buttermilk is happened mainly because it has gone through several levels of different sanskars at different stages. This is one way of understanding sanskar, but sanskar from the Vedic perspective has a slightly different meaning, and we need to understand that. The way I understood that is by surrendering to one of my very, very, favorite passion, that is food. Let me give that example. We Indians are known to eat our food with our hands, right? And especially the South Indians. The North Indians also use their hands, but the diet that they have, the rotis, the sabjis, will not allow them to use the hands, the fingers as much as we South Indians. Because they might take a roti and make a piece out of it and dip it in dal or sabji. And of course, if the food is finger licking, they will just definitely lick their fingers. But there ends it. But for a South Indian whose main diet is rice, he will use all his 5 fingers and sometimes even the palm. He will dip his fingers into rice and mix it with huli and saru, the sambar and rasam. He will then mix it with the chutney, and then he will dip his 2 fingers into the pickles and takes a luxurious serving of it and lick that. And at the end, he will also mix the rice with curds. There ends his meal. For a South Indian, the dessert is curd rice. Now, after finishing eating like this, which I always do every day, every meal that I have, I wash my hands, come back and sit, and there is a ritual that I follow. I will immediately take my fingers and take it to my nose and smell that. I'll tell you, it's those fleeting seconds or absolute seconds of joy, ecstasy to me. Why? Because the fingers now has an amalgamated aroma of all the food that we have devoured just now. It has that tamarind taste from the huli. It has that spicy touch to it that it's taken from the pickles. And it has that serene texture to it because of its contact with curds. This aroma which has stayed on to the fingers after you have eaten food using your fingers, using your hand, is samskara as Veda describes. It is an imprint, it's an impression. The only problem is that this samskara I'm referring to, the experience of eating food, is transitory in the sense that it will remain for some time. After about an hour or so, that smell is gone. But the samskara that the Vedas are talking about is eternal. That's why very jokingly I tell to my friends that eating with a spoon and fork is education, but eating using your hand is Shiksha. Now let's understand samskara as how Veda prescribes it to us. From Vedic perspective, samskara is memory, is a collection of imprints and impressions. Now, in order to understand that, we have to deviate a little bit here and dwell upon certain tenets of Veda. If you understand from where Veda is coming from, then it will be easier for us to understand samskara and move forward and explore that beautiful shodasha samskara subsequently. In order to understand this, we need to understand a few things that Veda very clearly tells us. One of that is all about existence, is all about astitva, is all about entities. According to the Vedas, there are only 3 entities in this world, in this universe. There are only 3 entities, 3 astitvas, period. The first one is Sat, Jada, the inert being. In colloquially, we can say non-living beings. Sat is there, but it doesn't know that it is there. There is no knowing to that. There is no prajna. It is Sat, which is non-living. For example, this table. This table is Jada because it is there, but it doesn't know it is there. By itself, it cannot do anything at all. Even to move an inch, it needs an additional extra force from outside. That's what Newton's first law says, right? A body continues to be in a state of rest or motion unless and otherwise it is acted upon by an external force unequal and opposite. Something to that effect is Newton's law. That describes Jada. The second entity, the second astitva is of Sat Chit. Chit gets added to Sat, which means it is being and it is also knowing. It knows it is there and it is there. What is the Chit? The Chit is what Veda calls as Anuchetana. Let's use this beautiful term Anuchetana for that. Colloquially, we can also say Atman or soul. The third entity, of course, is the Paramatma. That a nice word for that is Vishwa Chetana. What is that? That is Sat plus Chit plus Ananda. Satchidananda, Sat Chit Ananda. Means that it is there, it knows it is there, and it is always in a state of Ananda or bliss. That state of bliss for Paramatma, Vishwa Chetana, is eternal. There is no single moment when it is not outside the state of bliss. It is always in the state of bliss because being blissful is its swarupa, prakruti. This is what Veda tells us. And we need to understand this. Once we understand this, let us come to the Anuchetana part, the soul. Anuchetana is always, as far as Veda is concerned, in a state of unrest because somewhere it has experienced that bliss, which is the Swarupa of the Paramatma, and it is always longing to reach that state of bliss. Its final objective is to reach the state of bliss. And for that, it goes through an endless journey. And for that to reach to that stage, in all his kindness, the Vishwa Chetana, the Paramatma, has given Anuchetana a certain vehicle, a body. It could be that of an animal, it could be that of the human. If you have the animal body, Anuchetana cannot do anything more because of the limitations of the animal body structure itself. But the human body structure is very advanced. It has got the Indriyas, it has got the Karmendriyas, the Gnanendriyas. It has the Mana, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta, the intellect. And this body structure has unlimited possibilities. The limitations comes only because of the limitations of the imagination of that intellect. It can do anything it wants. The Anuchetana, which gets into the human form, has the potential of reaching that stage where it can experience bliss, which is the Swarupa of the Paramatma. This is the quintessence of Veda. Anuchetana is on an eternal journey. The birth and the death cycle is only for the body. The body by itself is Jada. The minute Anuchetana finds that this body is not helping me to continue my journey any further, it simply drops that and gets into another body. Which body it gets into, which ecosystem it will go into, is all decided by another beautiful principle of Veda called Karma Siddhanta. I will not go into the details of it, but let's understand that Karma Siddhanta defines this part of the Anuchetana's journey. Now we will come to samskara. Because the Anuchetana is on a continuous journey, an eternal journey, it is carrying certain imprints and impressions from all its past experiences. And that part of impressions that it is carrying is called samskara from the Vedic perspective. This samskara has all the experiences, good and bad. If there has been more bad experiences, then it's a bad samskara. If it's got more good experiences, then it's a good samskara. So the Anuchetana comes into a body carrying this samskara. And this is where the beauty of Vedas are. The Veda doesn't say, because the Anuchetana has come here with its own part of samskara is going to decide how the next journey would be. No. Samskara, according to the Vedas, at best can be only a guiding force. The driving force actually is Purusha Prayatna. Veda is so very beautiful and logical because it always gives out a philosophy and comes back to say that that philosophy can be realized only through Purusha Prayatna. There is so much of emphasis for what we do, what we as a human being with all our boundless uh, intellect can achieve. That's the beauty of Vedas. So while samskara is the guiding force, the driving force actually is the Purusha Prayatna. So it means that the Purusha, the, the, the body with its intellect has the capability to correct the samskara also. It has got the capability to edit this samskara. Why should it edit? Because the final objective of the Anuchetana is to reach the state of bliss. The stronger the sanskar, it is easier for the Anuchetana to move towards that state of bliss. The weaker the sanskar, Anuchetana will be moving away and away and away from that state of bliss. How do we edit sanskar? There are several ways. The two ways of editing sanskar is through dosha nirasa and guna adana. Guna adana. What does it mean? It means that sanskar already has certain impressions, good or bad. We have to remove the dosha from that, dosha nirasa. That is one activity that we need to do. And while doing that, we need to put the good things into that, guna adana. Both have to be complementary to each other and both have to coexist. Like, for example, how do we treat a wound, right? When somebody comes with a wound, we first clean that surface area of the wound because he would have picked up some unwanted dust and other things which can cause infection. So first of all, we clean that, removing the dosha, and then we apply medication to that. That is gunadana. Then only wound will get cleared. The question is, why should we clean it? We can just apply medicine. What is wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that. It will also heal the wound, but it will take a much longer time, and in that process there could be some complications. Or the other way around, why should we apply medicines at all? Let us just simply clean it and leave it for the nature to take care of it. Yes, nature will take care of it. It will heal over a period of time, and during that time there is a possibility of an infection creeping in. But if you do both of them together, then the healing process is absolutely predictable and it happens faster and effectively. I can state my own example, with 1 or 2 decades of being inactive and so very engrossed in my work, I have built a small tummy which I am now trying to get rid of. I can do it by exercise or I can do it by diet. If I only exercise and come back home and have a nice 8-course, 3 meals a day, it's not going to help me. Or if I'm going to only control diet and have a lazy life, that's not going to help me. I need to combine diet and exercise together. So that way, editing the samskar, the part of samskar, is not just about removing the kalmasha from that, the dosha from that, the bad things from that, but also keep on adding the good things to that. This is how samskara can be made better by the day by Purusha Prayatna. What is it that's going to help us in this endeavor? This is where we turn to the Vedas, and Vedas have their own beautiful prescription of shodasha samskara. Every culture in the world, every civilization in the world have their own prescriptions, towards this. I, for one, have not studied different cultures, different isms, different holy books. So I'm not able to comment on this straight away. I'm also a very novice in the field of Vedas. I've just started learning Vedas in the last 8 to 9 months under the guidance of my very lovable and affectionate guru, Sri Vedadhyayi Sri Sudhakara Sharma ji. That too, it's only once a week, a Sunday class. So my own learning in Vedas is also pretty limited, minuscule, a drop in the drop of the ocean. And my own understanding of other isms is absolutely zero. So I'm not making this next statement that I'm going to make. But this next statement I'm going to make, I have heard it from learned people across walks of life, the Swamijis, the Gurus, all of them who have studied all of this. who have this potential of knowledge with them, have made this one statement, which is, among all the texts available in the world today, the prescription of Vedas through shodasha samskara happens to be the most complete, most comprehensive, and the most exhaustive. And I don't need empirical data to believe them, I just believe them. And the little bit of study I'm doing in Vedas is, I'm getting convinced that whatever they have said is absolute truth. Vedas have looked at various stages of human evolution and found out what are those sensitive stages when Shiksha has to be given. It has understood what kind of Shiksha has to be given. When should it be given? How should it be given? And they have formulated it into shodasha samskaras. There are 40 and odd samskaras, which have been kind of filtered out into 16 primary samskaras which Vedas prescribes. And let's look at them. This being the part one, I have used a little more time in the beginning in order to set a stage for us to understand a few things. Some of the words we will repeatedly use and get the right meaning as Vedas intend the meaning for that, so that when we understand, get into the actual analysis and study of the shodasha samskaras, we will always be understanding it from the backdrop of the Vedic tenets. The shodasha samskaras, as prescribed by the Vedas, are 16 in number, and they are Garba-dhan, Pumsavana, Simantonnayana, Jatakarma, Namakarana, Nishkramana, Annaprashana, Chudakarma or Chaula they say, Karnaveda, Upanayana, Vedharamba, Samavartana. Samavartana is the present day convocation that we have. Then it's followed by Vivaha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa and Antyeshti. These are the 16. And if you just look at these actually are the 16 stages of our life when we actually need education. We need Shiksha. We need somebody to come and tell us what it is all about, what is expected from us, what are the bigger ideals that we need to follow, and so on and so forth. Shodasha Samskara exactly does that. There are several ways that people have classified these 16. One way of classification is based on the samskaras 1 to 9, that is from Garba-dhan to Karnaveda, are all done up to the age of 3. The rest of them are all done beyond the age of 3. This is one way of classification. The other way of classifying is that the first 3, which is Garba-dhan, Pumsavana and Simantonnayana, these 3 samskaras are done before birth and the rest of them are all after birth. This is very, very simply data analytics, right? But I like the other classification which people have done, which Vedas themselves do. And that classification is very beautiful. It says, first to 12 samskaras, the first 12 samskaras from Garba-dhan up to Samavartana, Vedas say is mandatory to all. And when I say all, I'm putting it in between inverted commas, capital A, capital L, capital L. I'm underlining it, I'm highlighting it, and I'm shadowing it. Because Vedas is not for he or she. Vedas is not for this person or that person. Vedas is for all. There is no gender discrimination. It is as much for a man as it is for a woman. And it is not, today we have misconceptions that Veda is for a particular jati and so on and so forth. Jati itself didn't exist at the Vedic times. It's post-Vedic. It's one of the horrible systems that humans have created because of their own greed to protect their clan. As simple as that. During the Vedic times, there was jati, and what was that? Whether you are born as an animal, prani jati, whether you are born as a human, manushya jati. That's all. Jati is only that. So Vedas is for everybody, and the Vedas are telling that the first 12 up to Samavartana from Garba-dhan, this sanskar is for everyone. And now the beauty of Veda comes. Veda says the next three, which is Vivaha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa, is not mandatory. It says it can be based on two things. What are those two things? One is your aptitude, and the other one is your preparedness. So beautifully it says. If you are not prepared, if you don't fulfill certain criteria, you don't have to follow these. If you don't like doing it, you don't have to do it. When we come to those, we will see the significance of what I am telling right now. And of course, the 16th, the Antyeshti, is whether you like it or not, it has to be done. Before I take up at least one within the time that's left with me, let me also say a little bit more about the samskaras. All these shodasha samskaras, the 16 samskaras, are very, very scientific. It's laid out very, very logically. It subscribes to all the medical ethics and medical truth. So to that extent, Veda has thought about all of this. It also has a lot of social messaging. It is not just for the kartru, the person who is doing it, but through that person who is doing it, it provides an universal message. Let the whole world, irrespective of any of the differentiations that we currently have, Vedas said in those days, the whole universe, the whole world benefit from this. There is a universal message. There is a societal concern that the Vedas bring to the table, which no other text brings. Very much, the most important is it's very economical. Everybody says that, oh, doing this is so very expensive, it's so very time consuming and so on and so forth. But a lot of people, learned, enlightened people, have formed the samskaras to be very precise, not to cost too much of money and time, but the benefits that one gets of that is abundant. It basically has one small homa, could be something like an Agnihotra homa, wherein you put ghee and certain medicinal roots and herbs into the Agni, and the sanskar that it goes through with the fire, it gives the smoke, it gives a certain aroma which is able to clean the surroundings, at least the place where you are sitting, and it will clean your minds. Scientifically, this is proven. And when you do that, you recite certain Vedic mantras. The best way to get the benefit out of all of the samskaras is not just have somebody come and recite those mantras, because if somebody is trained to recite it using the right technique of sasvara, or using the right rules of sasvara, it's a very beautiful experience to listen, but it doesn't help us. It is just listening. Shikshana is not just learning, it's putting it to practice. To put it to practice, you need to first understand the meaning, arthanusandhana, and then acharana. If at all we can restrict ourselves in these, just for a few of the mantras, understand it fully, apply our mind, apply our feeling to it, and then bring it as a practice into our life, the samskaras will transform us from mundane to a much, much higher being. This is for sure. And it's also a time of celebration. Not the way we celebrate today with so much of pomp and gaiety and showmanship. A simple get together of family, the near ones, the dear ones, the elders blessing the kartru. Everybody is having fun, a nice meal and get together. So there is also a celebration to each of the samskara that Veda prescribes. With this, I think we are kind of set to understand these samskaras one by one. At least I needed, as an individual, all of this background in order to understand samskaras. That's the reason I'm sharing with you. I don't know if it is helpful to you, but if anybody wants to dwell deeper into the various things that we discussed in introduction, we can definitely do it probably in another session, appropriate session for that. Let me, it's already 35 minutes into this session. Let me take another 5-10 minutes at least to cover one of the samskaras, and we can always take the rest of them in the part 2 or part 3 later. Let us look at Garba-dhan, the first one. Garba-dhan is a samskar that is given to the couple during the periods of union and conception. It's given to the couple. Why is it given? Why is it given? at the time when the couple is ready to conceive a child. There are two things. Veda believes in two things. Vedas is not a conservative text. It's one of the most open texts, and that's why Veda is truth. Veda is truth only because it has such an open mind to every aspect of human being, every aspect of living, every aspect of existence. It appreciates and it gives value to the biological needs of the couple, but it says that's not the end. There should be a higher goal. Even in our colloquial management terms, we say, if you want to aspire higher up, at least go and aspire for the stars. You will at least reach the roof, right? If you don't aspire for the stars, forget about reaching the roof. You might slip down into Patala also, who knows? Veda is telling the same thing. Meeting one's biological needs is important, but there is a much higher ideal that you need to address, and that is your union should give rise to a supraja. Very beautifully it says, Jha is santana, offspring. Praja, very nice santana. Supraja, very, very nice santana. See how much of emphasis Veda stays on this word. Not just Uttama santana, but Uttamottama santana. Your responsibility is not just to fulfill your biological needs, which is absolutely right, but beyond that, you need to have an higher ideal that your union should give rise to an offspring, a santana, a boy or a girl, who will carry the samskar that you give them, you give him or her, and then through their life, through their journey, make the society that they live a better place. This is the high ideal, and that is why at that time the couple needs Shiksha. And the other thing that Veda believes is the state of mind of the couple during the time of union and conception, they say, will be carried forward, will be passed off to the child to be. We will see how appropriate it is. But Vedas in those times thought about it. And they said that we need to, at this point in time, at this juncture of one's journey, keep the couple with us and then teach them, give them the right shikshana so that they maintain their well-being, which in turn gets transformed into the child's well-being. So Vedas prescribes that an act is just an act, but if you do it with shikshana, it gets translated into yagna. Yagna is doing something better. That's all yagna means from the Vedic perspective, because the yagna is yajadatu, yajadeva pujas, sangati karana, daneshu. It also means doing puja, but yagna actually from Vedic perspective means whatever you're doing, if you do it in a better way, if you do it with consciousness, that's what Jiddu Krishnamurti calls as conscious living, right? Whatever you do it with a certain amount of consciousness, so that what you're doing will be better than what you did the same thing a year back or a day before. That's what it is. So there are a lot of, after the Agnihotra Homa, there are a lot of mantras which are recited. If the Purohit is a knowledgeable Purohit, well-meaning Purohit, he will explain all the meanings in such a way that the Kartrus will be motivated to imbibe it. Kartrus will be motivated to take it into their blood and bone. That is the enlightenment part. There are a lot of mantras which tells the couple that, see, this is the time when you will have to be in love with each other. You got to care for each other. You both should have mutual respect for each other, right? If you have mutual respect for each other and care for each other, then you both are having a very, very existence that spells well-being, right? So there are a lot of mantras which basically are keeping the couple in front and telling them that this is the way you need to conduct between the two of you. Let's look at one of the mantras, which is a mantra from Rig Veda, which is 10.184.1, 10th mandala, 184th sukta and first mantra. I'm just giving a flavor of the mantras that are used during this samskara. And this mantra is very beautiful. It says, Vishnur yonim kalpayatu tvashta rupani pimshatu. Asinchatu prajapatirdhata garbam dadatu te. Vishnu, O Bhagavan. Vishnu, the minute we say Vishnu, we don't have to remember the form of Vishnu, sleeping on Adishesha with 4 hands and so on and so forth. That is Purana. In Vedas, Vishnu is not the Vishnu that we have in our perception. In Vedas, Vishnu is a reference to the Vishwa Chetana, the Bhagavan, the omnipotent. How is it? Because Vishnu, if you look at its dhatu, it is Vishalru Vyaptau is the dhatu, which means that one which is pervading everywhere, one which is present everywhere. What is it that is present everywhere in the universe? That is Vishwa Chetana. That's why we call him omnipresent. So when we say Vishnu, we are only referring to the Vishwa Chetana. So this prayer is for the Vishwa Chetana, asking him, Vishnu Ryonim Kalpayatu, please strengthen, please purify the reproductive organs of us. Tvashta Rupani Pimshatu, it says. Tvashta means a badagi, a carpenter. Just like a carpenter who takes wood and gives it a certain shape to bring out in that the hidden furniture. The Bhagavan actually has to shape the child for us. This is a very earnest prayer to the Bhagavan, where the couple is telling, hey Bhagavan, please give a proper shape to our child and give all the required strength for that so that it can conduct this Navamasa, the journey of this its 9 month and come out as a healthy child. Such a beautiful prayer to start the entire ritual with. There is another one, very, very nice one. It says, this is Rigveda 10.184.2, the very next one. The first line of that is, Garbam Dehi Sinevali, Garbam Dehi Saraswati. This is what the husband is telling the wife. Husband is telling the wife, oh my dear wife, please you be the Annadate, you be the Gnanadate Saraswati, and please bear our child. Why is husband making this request? Once we understand it, we feel so good about this mantra. The husband is telling the wife that you please bear our child by you yourself becoming the Annadate and you yourself becoming Nanadate, for the simple reason that if that is the state of mind that you can acquire as an individual, as a mother to be, you are going to conceive and give rise to a child who will reflect the same sentiments, reflect the same gunas, reflect the same ideals. So all through these samskaras, various mantras will basically be reinforcing to the couple to live a life of live very amicably and with a lot of love, no hatred for each other, no negativities at all, and then keep praying the God to shape the child, to give the child the strength, and also trying to maintain and progress in your own well-being, because that is going to affect the child. Is it scientific? Is the question. It's absolutely scientific. That's why my respect to Veda is so very, so very profound. Let me read a paragraph from the book, The Favorite Child, written by Ellen Weber Libby. She was a PhD and she wrote this book sometime around 2010 or 11 based on years of research, not just by her, but by fellow beings in other places. I will just state exactly what is there in that book, that particular paragraph. It says, she writes, Ellen Weber Libby writes, research indicates that even before birth, mother's moods may affect child development. In fact, she says mother moods may affect, because she is basing her knowledge on the empirical data that her colleagues have got. If at all she has read the Vedas much before that, she would have actually said mother's moods not may affect, will affect, W-I-L-L. Anyway, I'm again digressing from this. Just coming back to what she has said, she says research indicates that even before birth, mother's moods may affect child development, comments Dr. Catherine Monk, a researcher at Columbia University. In summarizing Monk's work, Anne Murphy Paul, PhD, in her cover story for Time magazine writes, a pregnant woman's mental state can shape her offspring's psyche. These observations and those of others investigating fetal origins, the study of how the 9 months of gestation influence physical, mental, intellectual, and emotional functioning, mirror empirical observations long noted by mental health providers. She concludes that the mental health, the physical health, the well-being of the mother actually translates to the child, and the well-being of the mother depends upon the well-being of the husband, and the well-being of the couple depends upon the rest of the people in the house. So this samskar is given not just for the mother and the father, it's given to everybody in the house as to make them realize what is their responsibility to fulfill the higher ideal. To conclude on this samskar, there can be a question. Somebody can ask us, they can say, do you need this samskar? Even without this sanskar, will the union of a man and woman not result in a child? You have spoken so much about, the Vedic tenets of anuchetana, sanskar, karma siddhanta, and so on and so forth. Even without this sanskar, will the child not be a great child? Will it not be a, if not a supraja, at least praja? Very valid question. The answer to that question is only this. Sanskar like this will enhance the probability of success. It's not that without that things won't happen, but if you have gone through this samskar and consciously, that's what I said, conscious living, consciously adopt it in your life, the probability of you having a well-being and translating that well-being into the child is much higher. I think we have come to the end of the time for the session today. I would rather stop at this first, and then we have the others right from Pumsavana to Antyeshti, the other 15 sanskars that we need to take up and see how each of them actually transforms the human in its evolution. It's a very beautiful way of understanding not just what Vedas is giving us in the form of Shiksha, but for us to understand our own being, our own existence, and our own reason for this life. With that, I conclude today's session. Thanks once again for all your patience. Namaskar. Vibhaji?
Hari Om. Yes.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Yeah.
I think I'm okay on time, Vibhaji?
Yeah, perfectly. No problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we'll wait for the question if there is any.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one hand.
Yeah, I just saw Mr. Ranjan Desai. I have unmuted.
Yes, Ranjan?
Namaskar, this is Ranjan Desai here. Can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you. Perfect.
Yeah, so I just wanted to have a, it was a very good webinar. I really enjoyed it too, and looking forward to hearing the next 15 samskara that you're going to be doing in the next webinar. Just had a quick question about the classifications that you had told in the beginning. Can you tell me who has done the classifications? I mean, like other learned people, or how is that? Like the last three or something you said is not needed, or things like that. Can you dwell on that?
Yeah. So thanks, Ranjanji, for your compliments. The classifications of the shodasha samskaras has been done generally by people who have understood this subject. One is that, we cannot say this rishi did this rishi did that, but these classifications exist. The simple way of classifying is based on, the year of age till what, these samskaras are relevant, and, so on and so forth. Or to say that, okay, which are the samskaras before birth and which are the samskaras after birth. But the third classification, which I liked, I have been told by a lot of people that that's the way Veda has classified it. Not you will not see in Vedas a table where it puts all the 16 shodasha samskaras and then the classification. It's not like that. We need to look at Veda mantras, because Veda mantras are understood not by one mantra but the associated mantra which might be somewhere else. So you connect all the dots together to get a big picture. Who did this big picture? I really don't know. But when the samskaras are being talked about in Vedas at several places, it is conveyed by the Vedic mantras that these three, which is Vivaha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa, are not mandatory. And there is a logic to it. Either somebody saw this logic and then took it forward. I'm really not aware of it. But there is a logic to it. For example, let's say, for example, Vanaprastha, right? Which is half of your life. After that, you start. Say at the age of 50, we start Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is the time when we stop living for ourselves and start looking how we can live for the society at large. Right? In order to do this, it is not mandatory for all. What if that person is ill? He cannot do anything. What if that person is still down, pulled down by a lot of vasanas and is not ready mentally and spiritually to take this assignment? He will be a misfit, right?
Right.
So it's so logical that Vedas have said these three, and it's also Vivaha there. It's a very, very funny thing.
That's exactly that. That was another thing which I was really interested in.
Absolutely. It intrigued me also. How can marriage be not mandatory? It is so very, even for marriage, when we come to that samskar, we'll see how the Veda mantras are trying to question the couple, whether they are physically and mentally ready for marriage, whether they are ready to take up the responsibility or not. Veda is pretty straightforward. It's very logical and practical. Unlike Puranas, Vedas are very straight. It tells the truth as is. Truth has to be understood as is. That's where Vedas. So a lot of people don't like Vedas for that reason. But Vedas is telling that even an engagement like Vivaha, the marriage, it is questioning the two, whether you are ready to take up this responsibility or not. And if you are not ready to take up the responsibility, it is telling right on their face that you are not ready for this samskara. So it's a very beautiful thing. But who actually did these classifications? I really don't know. I can check with my guru and come back.
Okay. And just one more question, according just because the Taittiriya Upanishad, right? It says that you should not cut the thread of progeny. So I mean, it advises that marriage is essential for two human beings. So I think the samskara is what you're talking about is after getting married, right? That's I think that's what. But I look forward to your next webinar and to see exactly what that talks about and all. It will be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, the first one I covered today is definitely after marriage, because Veda believes in one man, one woman relationship, because it's a holy institute as far as Veda is concerned. So this is after marriage and before conception. There are samskars which happens during the other stages of life too.
Okay, sure. I look forward to the next webinar from you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ranjanji.
There's a text question, Satyajji.
How do I get it? Okay. I have to press on. Okay, I got it. Who is that? The question is from Srimati Vijayalakshmi Bangera. What I conclude is that the purpose of life is to attain Ananda. These shodasha samskaras help you to attain it. Am I right? Yeah, absolutely right. In fact, the very purpose of Anuchetana to don a vehicle, a body, it could be of an animal or of a human being, based on its karma siddhanta, is to attain this state of bliss. Somewhere, it has already experienced that and it's craving for that. All of us would have experienced the state of bliss at one point in time or other. But the problem is we are not able to latch on to that. It's transitory. It just marvels at, it just excels us and then passes off. The idea is to latch on to this. That's what Anuchetana is doing. And all these samskaras, all these Veda mantras, all these prescriptions for a very righteous living is all in order to strengthen the samskara, to strengthen the anuchetana, so that it goes nearer and nearer to that state of bliss and then experiences that. You are absolutely right, ma'am. Thanks.
I think there are no more questions.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Satish. It was really, really very nice, informative, and it was inspiring also for us. It's a very good inspiration. It
yeah,
was very.
Vibhaji, yeah,
We
my
look
personal thanks to you and all the participants for their patience. You know, on a Sunday morning and Sunday evening here, they have spent some time with us, and I'm very indebted to that. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the next part as well.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Good night. Hari Om.
Good night, Vibhaji. Shubhratri. Thank you.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.